welcome at our release webinar. Very glad to have you all. We have a good number of people this meeting. Very good to see that enthusiasm. So just up front, be assured that if you miss anything, you will get a link to the recording of this session. So even if you have to walk away or you miss something because you have to grab a coffee or whatever, you will get that for free. So that's the good news. Just going quickly over our agenda for today, I will try to have a very short introduction into some new products and norms. And then Berend will take over for the bit that you're really interested in because of all the new releases and the good things from that. But nevertheless, I will tell you a little bit. And I suggest, Berend, I just go on with that and then you take over.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay, I hope everybody can see this. What we have here is a couple of things. So one thing that is buzzing around is climate change is added to the various ISO norms. It's becoming a sort of a hype. It's been blown up a little bit to our feeling. But anyway, the point is that on 4.1, so I'm talking HLS here, understanding the organization and its context, the organization shall determine, I've put it in red, shall determine whether climate change is a relevant issue. So that's quite interesting. And it's coming back, of course, under 4.2, the interested parties or stakeholders, relevant interested parties can have requirements related to climate change. Now, that is sort of a very rough description for the time being, and that needs to be more precise, of course. So basically what we are saying, and Berend will come back on this, and Berend, I think you have it in your next release planned, this text. Yeah. So you will show it perhaps. But anyway, so it will be added to the text, but please keep in mind, just in case if you're approached or people try to attack you because you have not covered it or whatever, is that it's brand new. It first has to be looked at, and the Raad van Accreditatie, so the accreditation authority in the Netherlands has only started to look at it. So it is not something that is auditable at the moment. It will certainly not be taken into account in any certification. And basically, we are working on providing a guideline, and that we will give to all the Base27 users so that they can act accordingly. So that's number one. The second one, which is, I think, quite exciting, is around artificial intelligence. So there is a new ISO 42001. What is on artificial intelligence? I've read it because I've already received a copy. What's interesting is that although it has the standard HLS, we also see that it has a very dedicated annex, a bit like the ISO 27001. But it's quite aggressive, to use that word. So what we see is you have to look into impact analysis, origin of data, privacy, etc. So all the buzzwords that we at the moment see in the media, and these AI tools stealing from the internet, reusing it for free and what have you. So that is sort of being put here in this text. So again, also here, it's not certifiable yet, but it's being prepared, and we will keep you posted. And should anyone have questions or ideas or whatever, then you know where to reach me. Then last but not least, I would say another hype, NIS2. I will not go into details what it is. I just saw a nice posting from Berend and his team on LinkedIn, where it was explained very briefly. So read that if you want to know more. What is interesting, I think, is that we have developed two products here. One is for customers like you, certified in ISO 27001, using Base27. Basically, you would not need a diploma, I would say, for NIST2 because it's not certifiable. But if you need some proof for customers or whatever, we have developed something, and so we can issue that using the third-party memorandum approach. So it will be audited, it will be official. And the other one is that we are also beginning to sell to companies that don't have Base27 and don't even have a formal ISMS. So basically there we do a lean implementation of 27001. Just to help you a little bit, just in case, in both cases we see that what is very important is to have your risk management worked out properly. So I think if you are certified and you don't have your risk management properly worked out, so I put here again the business impact analysis. It's quite important. And your business continuity management, in many cases, what we see is also very important. And again, that's also built up from the business impact analysis. So just very brief, a little update on what is happening there. Moving on to you, Berend.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this release webinar entails the updates that we've provided in the last couple of months. That's basically, I believe, November and January of this year and November last year. I will go over them one by one, showing them to you. I can imagine that you might have some questions here or there. Please put them in the chat. I will try to pick them up along the way. If not, I will definitely come back to them at the end of it. So with that said, let's get something shared here. I need to switch a little, just a minute. There we go. You should be able to see Base27 now. So the first topic to address is the integrated functions when performing audits. So on the audit management, performing audits tended to be a lot of clicking around, putting a lot of information in there. But we have streamlined that process together with IsoSecure to make things, well, more usable, we hope, for everyone. I've prepared a small audit plan based on the A5 organizational controls of the new framework. And if we look at that, we immediately start with performing the audits, and the first one is already selected. As normal and as before, you could see the actual text of the audit to perform here. In many cases, this is based on the norm as you build your audit plan based on this norm. But it can be modified, obviously. Whatever you put in there, it's shown, and you can put in your findings regarding this part of the audit immediately. So previously, you had to add some finding, then you had some small input boxes to put in your comments or information. Now it's shown immediately without creating anything, and it's there for you to continue on. For this one, check policies. Well, okay, let's see. Policies are stated and communicated, for example. That's an okay finding. And I can immediately continue putting in some argumentation. I can put in some evidence in terms of texts. You can see that the date of finding was immediately set. Now, I can also show a little bit of more information. For example, I can put in a status. Maybe I want to put in something of a deadline as well. All of these fields can be switched on or off. Even evidence, if you don't want to put in evidence at this stage, you can deselect it for viewing a compact screen in the way you would like it. I prefer to have the evidence there and not to have the status and deadline, but this is my typical layout. And I would provide some additional texts. On the right-hand side, you can also see that there is this sidebar, which you are probably familiar with in the detailed editors, which you can open to add comments, or you can check whether there are some files. But I can also drag them or add them to this location immediately without further clicking or showing the detailed editor. When I do so, you can see, okay, there is an attachment now. It's shown also when collapsed. And there is also this preview option. So for images, so stuff that can be previewed, it pops up immediately to show the outline of the image, in this case, that you have edited. And if you noticed, there is also a numbering now, which it has been added for reference, basically. For example, if you, for your argumentation or evidence, if you want to refer to these attachments, this numbering helps you out there. For example, evidence shows C1, for example, that the policy is communicated. Well, this is a rather long evidence sentence. I would not normally do that in this much text, but you can get the idea here of how to work with that. If I still want to use the detailed editors, I can still do that. I can click on Edit, and the editor, the normal finding editor, will show up, obviously, again, with this same option, also with the image here. So this functionality regarding the numbering and the preview, that's still available. You can also see it in the editors, and you can still continue on them. Now, in most cases, you will have one finding per audit. At least that's the common rule. When you go to the next one, there's already a setup shown, and even for the ones you've not visited before, you can immediately start adding a finding. Now, in the case that you need to add yet another finding at the same audit, you can do so by clicking the plus. And from there on, you have two findings based on the same audit. And you then get to see a table that shows, well, all of the findings that have been reported. So this was basically the table that you had before and which you had to work with. Now it's only shown when you have two or more findings per audit. And when you do, you can switch between them and, for example, well, add another, maybe this is another type of finding that could apply. You can also remove it, revert your situation, and you see I'm back at the single finding that I have for this audit. These findings are still there. You can just normally continue working on them. You can see it here, and follow up on them as normal. Only difference is that the interaction here with the audit plan and putting in findings becomes more, less clicking, basically. Okay, so we also looked at the preview and ordering of attachments, the one I showed here. So that was another topic to identify. Next topic to discuss is the countermeasures, I must say, and the follow-up on that. So whenever you have a countermeasure, for example, this one, you might want to implement the gist of this countermeasure into your management system and into your organization, obviously. This typically consists of three basic steps. One is to devise some kind of policy or modify an existing policy. You probably need to take some tasks, activities within your organization to really implement that new policy. And then you might want to have a check to verify whether that policy is actually implemented correctly, effective as it is intended to be. Previously, you only had this planning tab here and put in a number of activities for follow-up, or don't even do that at all and just manage it by the general fields of the countermeasure. Now, 2 new tabs have been added to the countermeasure. One is the policy tab to enable you to link a countermeasure to certain policies within the system. That might be existing policies or new policies that you set up. In case of existing policies, you can look up policies in your in Base27 basically, and apply them to this countermeasure. That is not so much as applying, but linking them to this countermeasure. As this specific countermeasure was targeted at a specific control, the system looks up any policy articles within Base27 that actually refer to that same control. In this case, that's the incident policy that we already have. And when I select it, I can add it to the countermeasure. So what I'm doing here is just linking this policy to this countermeasure as being one of the policies that you might want to adapt to apply this specific countermeasure. Other policies are there as well. All of the policies basically in your setup of Base27 are available, and you can see that maybe you also want to do something on networks and zones and include that one in this policy linking for this countermeasure as well. I will not do that now. I have this policy linked, and from there, if I have the permissions to do that, I can also start editing this policy. So from within the countermeasure, I can open up the policy and start working on this new policy, probably change policy to apply the countermeasure objective. If there was no policy available, I could still add a new policy, but do use this with care because, well, it's only available if you are allowed to create these policies. That's one. That's a safeguard. But obviously, if you, for every countermeasure, you create a new policy article, your setup, your policy documentation might become very cluttered. So take care with that. But it is it is possible. For example, if I would do it, I will not continue on it, but I can put in a title, which is now derived from the actual countermeasure title. Let's put something more appropriate. For example, the information security incident management. And I could think about putting that at organizational security within the hierarchy of my policy documentation. Like I said, I don't want to do that at this point, so I will cancel it. But you can see that it's quite easy to, from within the countermeasure, to also access and modify your policies. Now, the planning is not changed, so you can still put in some task here, apply the incident procedure as you have now set it up, etc. And finally, you can, when that's done, you might want to evaluate whether to put in a check. So one sort of safeguarding that this new policy, this countermeasure is being applied appropriately. Again, we have the options to either create a new checklist to verify this countermeasure and its implementation, or to look at the existing checklists that are already defined within the system. And from there, we can, for example, find some kind of organizational check that we want to apply. Well, this is not one that is appropriate, but you can imagine that some of these might check out by them. In this case, I will create a new one, since there is no appropriate checklist. And when I do so, again, it's kind of filled with some information from the countermeasure itself. I will need to assign a certain location to set the this checklist. Let's call it an organizational check, some description, and obviously I need to provide in some checks to actually perform them for them. What you also see is that the linkage of the norm, the control that this countermeasure refers to, is also applied to all of these checks and stuff. So all the relevant links are immediately taken over as well. So in this case, we might want to do some check incident handling, something like go over performed activities in latest incident or something, and they should comply, obviously, etc. When I've done so, I get a link to that specific checklist, and from there I can manage it. I cannot, well, I could maybe, but it's not intended to do the actual check here. But if I would save it and then go to all of the checks, we put it in organizational, I believe. Yeah, there we have it. It's about information security incident. Apparently it was linked to an accountant supplier, the countermeasure that is, so it's also applied to the checklist. I can see that now. And from here I can actually perform the check. So that streamlines, if you like, the flow of activities that you need to do for a countermeasure. You are not obliged to do that. You can still use the way it was before, basically assigning a countermeasure and not adding any links or information to that countermeasure. But for those who have this step-by-step approach, they can utilize it. Next in the new release functionality is the option to generate a report for various incident entities. For example, a countermeasure, for example, risks, findings, incidents. You now have the option to generate a report based on this single countermeasure. So if I click it, a report is being generated. And it will show something like, I've prepared this beforehand, so I will open it up easily. A report in a more new layout is being generated, showing all of the information that's related to this countermeasure. And you have kind of a overview of this specific countermeasure in this case. But the same applies to, for example, findings or risks, in which you can also generate a report of findings, which also allows to have these reports generated. If you want to modify the template of the report, that can be done just as with all the other document reporting that we provide. At Setup, Manage Templates, there is a list of templates that you can manage, and the basic way it works is just like before. You have some keywords that you can place and use for setting up the template. Okay, one major change also from November last year was about the workflow, and we already showcased this during the customer event, which we had in November as well. And that's about, well, let's take another one, preferably in English, but I don't have a lot of English examples. Let's take this one for now. The workflow that you might apply for, in this case, findings, that's now more closely integrated with the entity itself. Previously, when you had a, let's see if we have, yeah, we have a workflow on the minor non-compliancy. If you had a workflow, it would open up the workflow tasks while closing or freezing the actual entity itself. And as a user, you were kind of lost in the context of what the workflow was about. Now this has changed by providing a new pane at the bottom of the side menu that provides, if available, to perform certain workflow tasks. It's in Dutch, so apologies there, but you can have various workflow tasks, a certain description of it, and you might want to or need to fill out some fields. In this case, it's required to set a deadline. Note, deadline is not required by the finding itself, but through the workflow, we actually enforce that the deadline is being set. And for example, that might be by the end of March. It's immediately synchronized, and once done, I can continue to the next one, to the next task, for example, to put it up for further analysis of this finding. And immediately the next task in this case has been enabled. So now this information is all available within the context of the finding. You can even work around in the finding while having this pane open. You can close it if you like, but it's still there on your request. Let's see, I do see some questions there. Eldad already identified. I will clarify this later. I believe it's about a topic we already left, but we will come back to that. I think this is much more convenient. Whenever possible, this editor will open up and show the workflow task at hand for the user to perform. Next is the compliance indicator based on checklists. For this, we will go to the context and perhaps take a look at the information systems. And for this one, we see that, let's look at the CRM system, customer relationship management. We see that the compliance indicator indicates a orange compliancy indicator. So there is something wrong here. Previously, this was only indicated when there was an actual finding with a non-conformity, which then would trigger to show this, orange-red non-compliancy. Now it's slightly different because it means that it might also result from a certain check that has been performed and which had a not okay outcome. So something was not in order. In this case, actually, it states that a finding was being generated. We can actually see that here as well. The same finding is linked to this supplier as well, or information system, sorry. And I can also look into it. And although this already has been completed, so this finding has been resolved already, no new check has been performed, which kind of negates the not okay condition at this point. So it needs another check, and hopefully let's simulate that everything is in order in this case. Yep, save and complete. I need an evidence. That's probably something that I need to check. Yeah, save and complete. So now we have an okay here, and looking it up, yeah. So now we have all our findings have been resolved. And we now also have a positive check on this same supplier. So at this point, compliance is indicated to be green, everything's set, all right. So working with these checklists has now been integrated into the compliance indicator, which makes, kind of sense, I guess. It has been mentioned by various customers, so we are happy to have resolved this accordingly. Something completely different at this point is using the question forms. This is available only in the Enterprise edition. So if you don't recognize it, that's probably because you have a different edition. If you have it, you might not have used it up until now, but then consider this to be a first time use of it. Basically, I guess. I've set up a specific questionnaire which consists of a number of questions in 2 categories, basically to register a new supplier. And for this, I have a general section which just lists name, address, contact, and a branches question. And this is the part where it has been modified, or where this new functionality is in play. If we look at this specific question, we have created a multiple choice answer listing all of the possible branches, in this case for this supplier. Whether this is all, that's debatable, but at least for the demo it is. And I've also indicated that multiple answers are possible. So a certain supplier might be active in endpoint protection as well as intrusion detection. And if so, obviously I would like to indicate both of them. Previously, it was only possible to select one answer. Now, with this option on, it provides the option to have a multi-select answer. So how does this play out? Let's see. If I start a new question form, and I would, well, I probably will do the approval myself. I could send this out to anyone within the organization or even outside of the organization registering this new supplier. Let's do it myself for now. Yeah, I can provide the answer. So let's put in example, go to the address. That would be our new office in Enschede, that is. And we have a contact. Well, you can always contact me, I guess, or Hans for that matter. And there we have the branches question, which we looked at previously. Now you can see all the answers are listed. And when I select one, the question is considered to be answered, so it could be only one. But for example, Axamble is also active in compliance and governance. I will select that one as well. And you can see both the answers have now been selected. I can click on them again to deselect and select something else, or reset it all together, and I need to make a new selection for it as well, because in this case, we are more in compliance and governance, and that's what I wanted to do. So this option has now been provided and will be reported as such further on in handling this question form as well. I think this is not really applicable at this point, but yeah, you can have some security questions and stuff, and then finally wrap up and have a question form filled out for new suppliers. Okay, let's leave it at this for now. Basically, it was about the multi-select option. Moving on, next topic in our agenda is extended configuration of the data sources. Now, data sources, you can only use and see them at dashboards and document reports, mostly used at dashboards, so I will use it here as well. Let's see how that plays out. If we are going into the configuration, for example, of this dashboard, we can click on the pencil. We get an editable dashboard. I can click on this widget and go into the settings of this widget. And for this case, I could, for example, want to include the title of the incident that I'm showing. Well, it's basically in the legenda, the way I've set it up now. So let's put it in there as well. And what we can see is that the title of the incident, it's abbreviated after a certain length, indicated by ... And there's nothing more to see here, which is very convenient, maybe not for the legenda, but if you have another setup, it might be handy. And actually, it's the default to have this text limited to 25 characters. Now, if I do want to have a longer line on that, I can do so by editing the max length of the data that is being produced. And you can already see it's by default, it's 25. When I put in 50, it will probably generate a lot more data for titles and all the other fields as well, by the way. I can also look at some other stuff. Again, for the title, especially for text fields, there are some other options here as well to show it in plain text, rich text, or HTML. It depends a little bit on the source of your field, whether this would be convenient. But this formatting is also applied to the actual document generating. Within the dashboard report, you will not see a lot of difference, but it might be handy to make sure that we only see plain text for this one. Let's remove that. So what we basically did, we made the title appear up to 50 characters, and we can see that again in the legenda in this case for this widget. And indeed, instead of ... at the end, it now shows almost all of the length of the titles, except for this one that really had a long title, which is still abbreviated about it. So you have a little bit more control on setting up your widget and controlling the way it is displayed. Okay. That's that. Next topic is about splitting roles. We get a lot of questions about using roles for users and the permissions that they have as a result of it. And one of the most difficult parts that we faced with a lot of questions from customers was about the manager role and the operational execution role. Both roles allowed previously to access certain items. For the manager, that would be anything located in the context menu, and the operational execution would be about stuff located at the operational execution menu, so incidents and risks and stuff. But the old roles also implied a certain condition that only items that were actually assigned to them would be visible and usable and editable, I mean. Now that raised a lot of questions, especially if you would combine roles, then suddenly this condition which applied basically to the operational execution role would then also apply to other stuff that they were assigned to. To mitigate that behavior, we decided to split up both roles, the manager and the operational execution role, into a plain manager role, which has from the basics access to all of the context menu and all of the items within, and the operational execution role, which has again access to all the items here, independent whether they were assigned or not. Now, to not provide too much access to existing users, we, for the migration, we combined it with migrating it to another new role, basically, that still provided that same condition. But now you have better control over it. So let's take a look at that. Let's go to the managers. Let's check out Gert de Jong. So Gert de Jong was one of the users that previously had the manager role only. And the manager role then would imply that Gert would be able to use the context and see the items that were assigned to him in this case and related information. Now, after the migration, that has been changed to not only the manager role, which is still there, but also with this special condition to be using the managed only condition, basically. You can see that also when you edit the user, these roles have been there. If we would add another one, we can see the manager role, which provides access to the main objects in the context. And we also have these special roles in which it states managed only. So this is the part where the manager has access to information that he or she actually manages. Sorry. The same applies to the operational execution, Hans Koopmans in this case, which had the same condition, operational execution, but now it only includes, or the additional condition has been applied, only assigned. Let's see how that plays out if we would switch to Gert de Jong. So that's the person who was a manager and who had access to the context menu. Yeah, there it is. And for example, on the information system, we can see, okay, Gert still has only access to the stuff that he's been assigned to. And within that, he has access to, for example, look up some risks. Although they are assigned to different people, he can still see them because he's managing the related information system here. Now, if we would change that, same applies for Hans Koopmans. We can quickly take a look at that as well. So Hans was assigned to the operational execution, has a number of access here, but in the findings only sees the information actually assigned to him. Switching back to modify this role, and then we will probably move on. Let's see, for Gert, we will remove this manager only condition. So now he has the manager role only. So this would now provide a lot more access. I do see a question from John. Is it possible to change names of specific roles? Not immediately, but do note that there is this remark here on top. Custom roles can be added, and basically this allows to set up any role as you like for your organization. You need to contact our support desk for setting it up, but we will be able to provide, for example, something like a product manager or a facility manager or whatever you have that needs a certain combination of permissions not available by the default built-in roles. We can set that up by contacting support. So back to John, Gert, sorry. Sorry, John. He's now manager, so this special condition has been removed, which should provide a lot more access for Gert de Jong. Let's check it out, and then we'll move on there. On the context, let's put it on context, information system. Yeah, so now there's a lot more information visible, where previously it was only the ones he was assigned to. But now you can see that all of the items are available because he is more, in generic sense, a manager that is able to do this. So we hope to have a little bit more clarification in working with these roles. And well, thank you, John, for asking the question, because it's very important to know that this can be customized wherever needed. That brings me to almost the final topic, which is a little bit more technical in nature, but we will briefly look at it. We have modified, while managing the REST interface, the menu, when the REST interface is enabled, it might not be in your instance, so this menu item might not be available, but if you like, you can again ask through support. But the menu has been changed. It now shows scenarios, triggers, webhooks, and then connections, which is the connections including the used server details that are included there. So this is combined. And the same goes for the logging, which is now on a separate location, and which allows to not only look for outgoing calls, because that was the previous situation. You only had access to outgoing logging and the triggers. So whenever something triggers and a REST call is to be made, that is being logged, but you can now also look at incoming calls. So whenever your external application makes a call to Base27, you can verify, review the actual calls and the results of it within Base27 as well. So this has been a major improvement if you are working with the REST API, but yeah, obviously if not, that would make not as much sense as it does. One other slight change there is about the scenarios. They can now have a log level configured. They are all set on debug by definition or initially, but for example, if there's actually no call here, yeah, there's a call here, so that's nice. But we can configure the amount of logging that this specific scenario will add to the log file based on the log level. So if we would say, okay, but we only want to see warnings and errors, we can put it on the log level warning, and then only when there are warnings or errors, you can it will still be logged, but all the other information will be disregarded. So this helps to, when things have been stabilized, you can put them on, for example, warning, but if you are debugging, setting up the REST API, you will probably want this on the log level debug to see all of the messages coming in and coming out. This is actually on the going out part. On the coming in calls, it is possible to suppress logging as well by providing a special header, but that's all in the documentation. Coming to documentation, I will also come to the last point of the release webinar. That is, we do have now this community portal available. And the community portal, it was already launched at the customer event last November, so it's been around for a couple of months now, but if you access it, you can switch to it like this, and you will be logged in through Base27. So if you would go directly to the community portal, you will not be able to log in and see all of the information. By accessing it through Base27, you can access the actual community portal. Now, the community portal has a number of options. For example, looking into some questions and answers. There are a lot of them assembled from some questions we had and the answers that we have given at the time, and which are still relevant for you to use. You may also want to check out the manual, which is also there. Well, that link needs some attention. It should go to this part of the portal. This manual will be updated, hopefully soon, with not only an English version as well as the Dutch version, but also to provide the documentation about the REST API and to include a little bit more navigation options to find the relevant information that you are looking at. Other stuff within the community portal is about some tutorials, videos that we have. You can see the updates, so what's new in the last couple of updates that we had. You can, there is a link to the blog well, basically the blog that we publish on our website as well. Now I need to come back, yeah. And finally, you have the overview of events, the last one being that we've updated our website and well, that was during Christmas, so there was a small event there, and the customer event, etc. So take a look at the customer community portal for updates and extra information regarding Base27. So that's the list. I want to add a small note, which already was kind of indicated by Eldert at the beginning. By the end of March, we will provide a new update, One thing to look out for is the availability of the NIS2 framework in this new release. And we will also update the 27001-2023 version with this environmental climate change conditions. They will be put into the framework as well. So do expect some updates on that part. Other updates are to be expected as well. But you will be informed when the update arrives.
We have one open question, Berend, from...
it's quite some text. Let me read it quickly. What would be the best way to use the audit plan functionality if you have your audit plan for 3 years and all controls need to be audited once every 3 years? Would you separate everything in separate audit plans and set frequency every 3 years, or make just one audit plan and archive it later? I'm still showing it, so let's move back to that one. There are a number of approaches you can take here. You can set up a single plan, although having a single plan span out over a period of 3 years, I would not recommend it. I would probably use for example, with the new norm, you have A5, A6, A7, A8. I would probably set up an audit plan according to at least these 4 chapters of controls, as well as the chapters 4 till 10, obviously, of the framework itself. By splitting them up, you have a little bit more control of checking them out. And actually, it's advised to have the chapters 4 to 10 audited every year. So there you can change the frequency of that part of your framework a little bit different from the other parts that you might indeed set to 3 years or, maximum of 3 years probably. Do take into account that your audit plan should actually be reflecting the amount of risks involved. So if you have some critical controls, once every 3 years would probably not do it. I would strongly recommend for that kind of controls to apply them every year. So that also guides you to setting up the proper audit planning in separate plans with different repetition frequencies. I hope that helps out, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, great. I guess this is also the time for other questions that might still be around. I guess not. All people are typing a lot of words there. That could be. Anyway, if you have any questions later on, you can also always ask them through support, obviously, or contact Eldert or me directly. Although, personally, I would prefer the support option, I guess. Thanks for joining, and hopefully see you next time.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.